Hi. Welcome everyone. Hope you can hear me. So this session is part of our commitments around the 5-year plan and the ICS SDMP. It's also a great opportunity to hear about how we can create green spaces and foster resiliency. So we're recording the session, so we'll put this online later. So hopefully everybody's logged in okay. So thank you to Amanda who's doing this. She's going to give a short overview of what the Ignition project is all about, talk about what we can do in terms of the first part of the assessment, and then answer any questions you have. So I'll turn it over to you, Amanda.
Thank you. Just on a logistics basis, if anyone does want to interject at any point, please do either drop a message in the chat box or you can put your hand up. I'm getting used to this webinar software as well, so bear with me. So Lynn, I can see you have your hand raised, but I can't unmute you at the moment. Please drop me a message if there's anything you wanted to say. If not, I'm going to whiz through this now and then I'll open it up and go through any questions. So thank you very much for your time today. Hopefully most of you can see the screen. If not, we will share this afterwards as well. I am Amanda Skeldon. I work for Business in the Community and I'm part of a project called Ignition, which is a €4.5 million project, the aim of which is to develop an investment plan to increase green infrastructure across Greater Manchester by 10% by 2038 from 2018 levels. It's a partnership of 12 organisations, so we've got universities, local authorities, not-for-profit, business, and the aim is that we want to identify ways of financing nature-based solutions to climate change so that we can achieve this vision for Greater Manchester. The challenge that we are trying to address within the project is that at the moment there are lots of small-scale projects, so tree planting, rain gardens, increasing green space across Greater Manchester. To attract investment, we need to kind of pull together a big enough portfolio to encourage commercial investors to want to invest in this. At the moment, there are no business models or funding mechanisms that enable this. Not that much investor confidence. This is an innovative project that's trying to see if we can solve that project and make that problem and mainstream investment in green spaces. And one of the other challenges that we're very aware of is the issue around maintenance. So once it's set up, how do we ensure that they remain useful and effective in the long term? So the project has 6 key areas of work. I will whiz through them just so that you understand where we are, but the front end of this around creating a project pipeline is what we're really keen to talk to you guys about. So the aim is that we create a pipeline of projects which are places where we can install nature-based solutions. So places where we could build rain gardens, put green or blue roofs on, increase green walls, plant street trees, those sort of things. And we aim to pull these together so that we can aggregate as many potential individual sites to create a large portfolio investment project for us to be
Are you okay if I bring Mandy with me? If you come back from the comments, is that okay? Brilliant.
I think it might be that would be great. Brilliant. Once we have a sort of package of places where we could create a lot of green space, we need to develop a robust business model. And this is based on something that we've been doing for a few years and work out how we can fund it. We need to increase confidence in investing in green space people because at the moment there's an increase in green investment, but primarily that's focused around carbon or energy. We are looking at how we build this as an enabling environment. We know that this isn't going to happen just by talking to investors and landowners. We need to work with a lot of different people around policy, around delivery to make it happen. And the living lab that we have, which is the fifth box on there, is something that Salford University is creating. They've co-created with lots of stakeholder input a living lab for nature-based solutions. So somewhere where we can trial different solutions, look at the costs of development, installation and management, and the benefits that these have on climate change resilience. And then the final aspect of this, and possibly the trickiest, is how we create a special purpose vehicle to manage that investment. So if we have lots of projects that could be invested in and lots of really confident investors, how do we bring them together, manage that, look at the governance and look at the legal side? Oops. So first aspect of this is creating a project pipeline, and this is the area that we're quite interested in. The first funding stream that we're focusing on within the project that we are hoping to deliver in 2 years' time is installing sustainable drainage systems, or SuDs, at publicly owned buildings across Greater Manchester. And the reason this model works, and we've tried this, we've spent 3 years looking at how the model works, which is utility charge by the wastewater by area of hard standing within a site, and they have a banded charging scheme. So if you can disconnect a significant area of hard standing by draining that into a rain garden, or removing it essentially from the wastewater network, it's possible to move down a charging band, and the cost saving, the annual cost saving, go back to repay the cost of building movements or SuDs installation. Sorry, just to double check if it's possible to mute if you're not. Everyone looks like they are that I can be, but I can still just hear a bit of background noise. Thanks, that's really helpful. So we are starting this by looking at public buildings through the councils, as they're an area where we could look at increasing the green space in those and finding the savings. And through our trial, we worked with NHS Properties Services as well as looking at the schools. And that's another area that we're really keen to look at, whether there are places where we can increase the green space around the NHS properties. Which is why we are talking to you. So to give you an example of what this would mean on a practical level, when we trialled the project, we developed a demonstration site in Moorlands Primary School. It's a relatively small primary school, and they were originally paying just over £5,000 a year, but we only needed to disconnect 500 metres of hard standing, so that's from the buildings and the playground area, to move them down a band. So we built a rain garden. You can see a bit of that, and a lot of the children in the images there. And that rain garden took water from the downpipe from the roof. That was when it was first installed, so it's now a beautiful green space. It created an outdoor classroom for the children. It created a really nice waiting space for the parents. And once that was built, it made a saving for the school initially of just under £3,000 a year by moving down one charging band. So that was funded through the Environment Agency as a trial project. But our aim is to look at how we can get investors to cover that initial cost, and then look at the return that we get by moving down charging bands. On a really practical level, what we're doing is we're compiling data of all the sites that we think this could be feasible in across Greater Manchester. So that's looking at billing data, and I'll just let you know what it is we're looking for in a minute. We're reviewing that data on a desk-based feasibility study initially. And what we're looking for at that level is the practical ground geology ability for the site to drain effectively if it's not on the right ground conditions, it may well be that it won't viably sit within the project. So we're doing an assessment of that. And we're also doing an assessment of how close sites are to a charging band. So we can look at what the cost would be to move it down and what the return would be, how long it would take. If you've got to disconnect a huge area, the cost may make that unviable. But that's the first stage of the project. And then we can pull all of that together to create this package that's a business case. It goes, okay, well, we have X number of sites across Greater Manchester where this is viable, where there is a cost-based model and where we know there's people interested, so that if we can get this investment, we can go ahead and develop the green space. Some of the benefits of this, beyond the fact that it's a financial model, we're being driven by an aim to increase green space to build climate resilience across Greater Manchester. But there's a lot of evidence, and we're pulling together a bigger evidence base around improved health and well-being of having green space around premises, improved amenity, and quite often there's associated with that improved behaviour, less antisocial behaviour, more desire to be in and around the space. There's a lot of evidence around work-based improved productivity and employee well-being for people working in those spaces, reduced local flood risk, and improved biodiversity, along with other areas, such as if we can do this at scale, we're really improving the impact on heat stress, on individual stress for people, and on flood risk across the city. So the ask that we have, having just whizzed through that, and I'll open up to any questions in a minute, is what we're hoping is that, having chatted through this with Daryl, is that there are potentially lots of sites across the NHS that would be interested in becoming part of this project and being one of the sites that we consider whether they would be viable for investment. What we need to make that happen in the very first instance is literally just water billing data. So we need to understand address and postcode geographic data of where the site is, who the water retailer is, because when United Utilities, essentially water was deregulated at a non-domestic level, the majority of sites went to Water Plus, but we are aware that some people may have changed that, so we need to confirm who the retailer is. On your bill, there is something called a wastewater or sewerage SPID, which is a supply point ID. There are two IDs for most properties. One is a supply ID and one is a wastewater ID. Also on the bill, we would know the area-based charging band, so that we know what band you're being charged at for wastewater. And also we need to identify the specific area that is actually being charged for. Majority of this information is available on bills, but if it's not for any reason, if you're unable to easily find the actual area being charged, it should be easily obtained by just requesting this from your water retailer. So that's the first step, is literally just an ask if it's possible to get data for anyone who's interested in being part of this, and we can put that through feasibility testing. And then the next step would simply be, if that looks viable from our feasibility testing, we would just need people to help us arrange a site visit to do some further ground truthing. That's completely non-invasive. We're working with City of Trees, and they just come out and look at all of the practical access, other utilities, and look around. There's no sort of, it purely just an opportunity to have a look practically and look at any existing plans and see what would be viable physically on the ground. So from your perspective, there would be no cost to being involved in the project. If it's suitable, once we've done the ground assessment and the financial assessment, the site could form part of this large portfolio of projects which we will try and find investment to deliver. If we are successful in the next 2 years to do that, we would be covering the cost of delivery and installing a suitable subsystem, such as a rain garden on the sites. We would develop a maintenance plan to ensure that the costs of that were covered. What we have to say at the other end of that, though, is there would be no direct financial savings to the sites for the duration of the investment. So we would be looking at this as an investment, so there'd be no costs, but there'd be no direct financial savings. But there would be, all of this would be provided, and the green space would be delivered as part of the project. So that's a whiz through the overview. I will unmute everybody and see how that works. If we need to do it selectively, I will. But please do feel free to ask any questions and let me know what more we can, more information we can give you should you need. I'm not sure I can unmute anyone because you are all self-muted. Oh, sorry, I've muted some of you. Brilliant. So does anyone have any specific questions or anything? As I'm aware, I whizzed through that quite fast. Okay, is this something that would be of interest to those of you who are on the phone, just and would be an area that you would be interested in being involved in, and is that a realistic request for information that might be possible to support on?
Can I just ask a question? It's Claire Ogo from Manchester Trust. We had one of our sites was looked at a few years ago for this, and that was considered to be unsuitable in terms of the geology. Is there anything? Oh, sorry, can you hear me? Is there anything that you've got that would tell us? Just in that first instance, are there any sort of parts of GM which are, whether or not our sites are likely to be suitable or not suitable before we go down the road of, before we start pulling together all the data?
Unfortunately, there's not. There's areas where we know where it is, but literally we're putting in sites and we map it against the British Geographical Survey data. And we've done this with some of the sites we've already got from the councils, and it's one that's literally on borders are going highly compatible for SuDs and severe constraints. So it can be literally small pockets.
Oh, okay.
It's quite hard.
Fine.
What we are doing as well is this is our initial funding stream. We are looking at other ways that there can be investments. So it could well be that there are properties that are in areas that are of high flood risk or put a lot of stress on United Utilities network during extreme weather. And if so, that might be another source of investment that we're looking at. So even if they're not suitable for this model because they need to be infiltration from the perspective of geology, they could well be viable for another funding stream. So we are looking at any sites that we discount on this first funding stream, we would look at for any other opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
No problems. Are there any other questions on what I presented so far? If not, what I can do is send around a link to the project so you can see anything further around it and clarify that ask, and I can send that through Daryl if that's okay, Daryl. And
yep,
then,
that's fine. Yep.
Brilliant. And then if you are able to just let us know as a yes or no if you'd be interested, and if you're able to see if you can source that data for us, or if you have any other further questions, then we can pick up from there.
Thank you so much, Amanda. We really appreciate hearing about this, and I know there's lots of people that wanted to attend, but know it's being recorded, so we'll pick this up later. But is it? I don't know if it's helpful for people to see an example of a water bill. Can that be provided to sort of see what you're looking for, or are people clear on that?
Yeah, I can send that, and it should be on the bill. The reason I question it is originally it was always on there. There's been a slight Water Plus have updated their bills recently, so if you are with Water Plus, it may not have the full area, so it might be a request that just has to go to the water retailer, but I can certainly provide that and show you the bits that we're looking for.
And you know, obviously we have done the one pilot site you mentioned in Stockport, so there's learning from that as well. So
yeah, and what I wanted to do, and I didn't have a chance to put them on today, is I've got some really nice images from that Stockport Health Centre just to show practically what it looks like and where those areas are, and we're hoping to sort of improve, to pull together, a case study from there as well, which should hopefully give a really good idea of what it can look like. But there was one picture on the slide that I showed, and it is actually within Stockport. It was on the outside of a health centre that was in a fairly run-down area, and it was just a bit of wasteland, and it's now this beautiful flower-filled rain garden that's right next to a mobile breast screening clinic that's there about 75% of the time. So we're hoping it's really created a really positive space for the health centre, and from their perspective as well, because this is done with investment from EA, that savings will have gone back to them, so they'll be making annual savings on their bills directly.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Amanda, and we'll pick this up and see what the options are for doing something across our many sites that we have, and look forward to working with you on this.
Thank you so much, Darrell, and thank you everyone for your time. I will send you the recording, Darrell, so it can be shared to anyone else on this. Send through the details of what that ask really is and an example of where that should come from, and a bit more information on the Stockport site. And if anyone has any questions following that, then please do get in touch.
That's great. I'll make sure your contact details are sent around. So thank you.
Thanks, Darrell. I really appreciate your time, everyone.
Right. Take care, everyone.